Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and solve system of equations, not using Cramer's rule, but instead using inverses. So just like in Cramer's rule, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take this, I'm going to rewrite this as a matrix where I have all of my coefficients. So the -4, 1, -1, -2 right there. I've got my variables. And then I got my solutions. So same idea, except here instead, if I'm going to call this matrix A, this matrix X, this matrix B, I have A times X equals B, right? If I want to solve for X, because those are my variables, I have to divide by A to both sides, right? That cancels this out, and then all of a sudden I have X equals B divided by A. Well, we don't know how to divide matrices, but we know how to do an inverse. So you take the inverse of the coefficients and you multiply it by the solution. So that's what we're going to do here, is we're going to take the inverse here and multiply it by the solution. So go ahead to do inverse. Remember, to do inverse, it's 1 over the determinant with, we've got D here, negative B, negative C, and A. So you change A and D, and you change the signs of B and C. Okay, so now we're going to work on finding the determinant here. So that's -4 times -2 minus 1 times -1. -4 times -2 minus 1 times -1. So that's going to get me +8 minus -1, so 9. So that's my determinant there. So now I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. I have 1 over 9, and I'm going to change these two. So this is now -2, this is now -4, and I'm going to change the signs on this one. That's +1, so now it's -1. This is -1, so it's +1. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to take that, and I have to multiply it by my solutions. So I'm going to bring that down here, multiply, -25 and 5. So I can go ahead and distribute this fraction through and make this -2 over 9, -1 over 9, 1 over 9, and -4 over 9, and then multiply by this. But then that means that I'm multiplying fractions and adding them, and that just gets really ugly. So instead, what I'll do is I will go ahead and multiply this with this. So I can multiply these because this is a 2 by 2, and this is a 2 by 1. Since these match, I can multiply, and my answer will be a 2 by 1. So I'm going to bring the 1/9 here, and I'm going to go ahead and bring the answer over here. So now I have -2 times -25 plus -1 times 5. And then here, I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to multiply it right here. So I have 1 times -25 plus -4 times 5. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring down that 1 over 9, and I'm going to go ahead and simplify what I've got in here. I have -2 times -25, so that's going to get me +50. -1 times 5 is going to get me -5. So now I have 50 minus 5, so that's 45. Here I have 1 times -25, so -25, plus -4 times 5, so -20. So now I have -25 plus -20, so that gets me -45. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to distribute that 1/9 to the 45 right there on both of these. So now I have 45 divided by 9, which is 5, and -45 divided by 9, which is -5. So since my variables right here were x and y, and they were in that order, x is this one, y is this one. So now you have your answer. All right, let's do it a different way. I can go ahead and I can take this and I can put it in my calculator. So I have my calculator here and I can put this in. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have the correct matrices. So if I'm going to take this, I got my coefficients. I have 2, -1, -4, and -3. So those are my coefficients. I have my x and I have my y. And then I have my solutions, 11 and -17. Okay? So I have to take the inverse of this matrix and multiply it by this solution matrix right here. Now, just as an FYI, let's pretend if this was 2x equals 11, I would put a 0 in here for the y, just as a heads up. But that's not what I have, so that doesn't matter right now. All right, so now I'm going to put it in the calculator. So I go into the matrix screen. I'm going to go over to Edit, and I'm going to edit matrix A to have this matrix in it. So it's going to be a 2 by 2. And my entries are 2, -1, -4, and -3. So now I have all that in here. I need to quit, go back to the home screen, and then now go back into the matrix screen where I have my 2 by 2 saved. I'm going to go over to Edit, and I'm going to go down to 2, and I'm going to put this matrix in right here. This is a 2 by 1. So I have an 11 here, and I have -17 here. Okay, so now I have both of my matrices in here. So I'm going to go back into the matrix screen, hit Enter on this one, and now this is the one I need to take the inverse of. And so I'm going to take the inverse by doing the exponent, the -1. And then I'm going to go back to the matrix screen and enter in this one. So this is saying A to the inverse times B, just like what I said that we need to do. I'll put that in, and I get 5, and -1 is my answer. So 5, -1. So that means that my solution is 5, -1. Or you can say x equals 5, y equals -1. All of those work, okay? So now let's try one a little bit more challenging. This is a 3 by 3. You have to use the calculator when doing these. I haven't taught you how to do a 3 by 3 in terms of trying to find its inverse. You could do Cramer's rule. It's just really ugly and takes a lot of work. So instead, we're going to go ahead and bring the coefficients down. So I have -3, 5, -4, -5, 1, -5. Notice this is a y here, so I have to be careful and catch that. That's a 0 for the x. 2 and 3. And I've got x, y, z. And this equals -9, -19, and 8. So I'm going to take this one, put this in my calculator as a 3 by 3. I'm going to take the inverse of it and multiply it by this one, the 3 by 1. So let's do that. So if I go back into the matrix screen, now that's still there, so I'm just going to go over to Edit and change this one, 3 by 3. And now I'm going to just override it with what I've got right here. So I have -3, 5, -4, -5, 1, -5, 0, 2, and 3. Now notice, I made a mistake. This is why you have to go back through and double check. So I have -3, 5, -4, -5. This should have been 1 right here. So now I have to go over to this one and enter them back in. It's really, really important to make sure that you catch these mistakes. A lot of people don't, and then they come up to me and they're like, I have a different answer than you. How did you do this? That's usually what it is dropping a negative or just kind of messing up how they're putting things in. Okay, so that one is there. So now I'm going to go back into the matrix screen, and I'm going to go over to Edit, and I'm going to change this one to be my solutions matrix, which here it was a 2 by 1. Now on this one, I need it to be a 3 by 1. So now I have -9 for the first entry, -19 for the second, and 8 for the third. So now I have these, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to the home screen, and I can enter this back in again. A to the -1 times B. And I get my answer, 2, 1, 2. So that tells me 2, 1, 2. That x is 2, y is 1, z is 2. Okay. Or you could do 2, 1, 2. Okay? All of those work, and that's how you do these questions.